Well, the end game is very simple. We want to see prosecutions for murder in Russia. Are we going to see them now? No. It's clear we're not. The entire apparatus of the government, right up to the president and the prime minister, is now involved in a cover-up, a conspiracy to cover up a murder. However, I don't believe that the current regime in Russia is a permanent regime. I think that you can see by the demonstrations that are going on that there's a crack. And when the regime falls, my goal is to make sure that this case is the case, the symbolic case, in which they use to have the first tribunals for crimes of the previous regime. That's my end game. So the Sergei Magnitsky Rule of Law Accountability Act has several important features. The first is that it takes anybody who is involved in the crimes against Sergei Magnitsky or the cover-ups of those crimes and imposes visa sanctions, asset freezes, and names the names, and allows congressional oversight over the State Department in visa sanctions and asset freezes. Now, that may not sound all that terrifying, but if you're a Russian government official that's involved in high crimes, and by the way, this doesn't just apply to Sergei Magnitsky, it also applies to all other gross human rights abuses. This is a catch-all for nasty things going on in Russia. If you're involved in those things, you do that stuff so you can get money, and you don't want to keep your money in Russia because you know how easy it is to steal because you just stole it real easily from somebody else. And so what do? You want to get that money outside of Russia as quickly as possible into as safe a place as possible, into a place like the United Kingdom or Switzerland or New York. You want to buy property on the front line between Monaco and Saint-Tropez in the south of France. You want to buy something in Belgravia. You want to send your kids to boarding school in England. You want to buy an apartment in Manhattan. You want to send your wife shopping in Manhattan. And that's what it's all about for these people when they do these crimes. And if you take that away, that shocks them. And how do we know that this has been such an effective policy tool? Is watching these guys squirm and send delegations to Washington and to Strasbourg and various places, desperately threatening, doing anything. And so what is the ultimate aim of this thing? We're not going to bring Sergei Magnitsky back, but if we have a sanction, then a real sanction that people are afraid of, then all of a sudden the guys who think that they're protected from their bosses will realize that their bosses can't protect them against their travel and their assets being frozen in the West. And therefore the risk reward of doing these things changes, and maybe it will stop a few people from doing stuff or make them think twice. And this doesn't have to just apply in Russia. I mean, there's a lot of talk in America about broadening this to the whole world. And if that becomes the new technology for fighting impunity, then I think that Sergei's death won't have been a meaningless death, that perhaps his death might save some lives somewhere else.